käytössä 14 tuntia ennen, niin ei niihin perehty. Onks nää kohta ne tuolta aloittaa?
Niin. Sitten lähdetään vielä niitä muistiinpanoja niihin. Käsissä sit se toinen.
Tää oli ilmeisesti ihan pitkä kokous tulossa, kun se Mikkelin homma meni penkkiin alle. Onko meillä mute missä?
Joo.
Mute tohon.
Eikö se vaan laittaa tonne?
Vasen alhainen. Ei kaikille striimiä tässä vaiheessa seuraaville. Work in progress. Tarvii käyttää mikkiä, mutta tulkit ei kuule mitään. Nyt pätkee. Tossa.
Tulkkaatteko sitä ne kaikki? Vai vasta kokouksen alussa?
Onko tää osa kokousta? Tuleeko tää striimiin?
Kuulemma tässä. En mä tiedä.
Jos tää tulee striimiin, niin me tulkataan, jos ei.
Oli ainakin laitettu kokous alkaa.
Tulkattavat ei ole paikalla. Eli jos tää ei tule striimiin, niin meidän on turha löpistää, jos tää ei mene mihinkään. Jos menee striimiin, niin me totta kai tulkataan.
En tiedä. Pitääkö se striimiin?
No ehkä.
Tee päätös.
No kyllähän periaatteessa oli merkitty, että kokous alkaa 4:30. Vähän niinku...
Sano, kun laitat striimin päälle sitten.
Se on ipä...
Hello, thank you to Akava, who is at offices we are at right now, and Eko and Eko, who are here supporting us and briefing us on a few current matters. To start with, Henna and Jussi and Mika will tell us about our unions, and then we'll get to the actual meeting proper. The stage is yours. Thank you. I'll only use a few minutes, so I'm Mika Markkari from Suomen Economit. Educational policy expert is my title. We worked on the educational policy side. We have two in Suomen Economit doing educational policy, which is one of our strategic goals. We also have societal politics and the job market where Kosti works. And then especially our members, and starting from members. So we are business student union and a networking conglomerate. We have 50,000 members, about 30,000 are economists and the rest. So we have local associations working through our economy associations, and we're kind of an umbrella organization. We have 24 associations in total. I don't know, 25? Yes, every time you say 24, you need to shout Christmas Eve. So, and that's what we've done. And we have the Kulttuuri associations, who are more known to you, to KY and Aalto. And a part of the economists' pool. Economists answers a lot of. We answer a lot of things. We advocate, at least we take to an advocate stance as a group, and also a group to talk about. We also have Kosti's presentation coming up about family leave and the questions regarding family leave. So it should be like an archetypal example on what kind of work we do, the societal influence level. Thank you, Mika. Then we have Jukka-Pekka Teini from TKY. And to start with an important question, we have an after party after this at our sauna to measure our food and drinks and beverages. We have pizza and beverages. Who's coming? Could you just... hand starts from the shoulder, so there we go. At least 10 or a dozen or so. Might have some latecomers joining us. So I'll just notch that up a bit, up to about 20 people. All right. From tech, we do kind of same things that the economists do. You've read from the news that we have this job market negotiations taking place right now. Quite hard subjects. I don't really understand them myself, but I won't tell you about them. However, I'll tell something more about my expertise about the issues of students and young people in tech. You have students who are here today. Also, when you graduate, we'll have a new service for you, Young Academics Forum, which researches various issues like how are things progressing, what's not progressing, and we also do sparring work that's starting after the piloting round that we did in early this year in Tampere and Helsinki. And we got the sparring rounds that are taking now late this year. So take those, check those out and attend. They are really nice. Last spring we had that. We also have new offices that are coming in Tampere. But Otaniemi is next. We also wish to do grassroots level work at the campuses, near you, near the staff. We also have local offices that will be in campuses. If you know the house where we have very much people going through there, lots of traffic, so we'll be there in your everyday lives and having it stands there. Also, a few other advertisements. We have the youth committee, we have the new committee, previous Teekkari committee that's coming, and starting from next year we also have students, advocates and representatives, also local representatives. So we kind of trying this new thing where we have a completely open call for participants, so young people who can attend and do. We have a 70,000 member strong union, so which is very strong, and it's not being utilized to its full potential, I think so. So we're thinking on how can we advocate more to your benefit. So my last point, we have this network for young technical academics in the Helsinki area, which is a club below tech, but it's more of a network because that's kind of the way we want to do things. Used to be under another name, and we changed the name, which is Hell Yeah now. So Young Architects is in the Helsinki region. So you are all welcome here, and we are under this name on Facebook, a group, and we're also organizing all kinds of interesting activities for people in the municipal metropolitan area. So you can come and see, for example, get to know the modern working culture, and also other kinds of business excursions. Also come and see the Kalasatama innovation side, parliament visits, etc. It's free to all people on the technical side of studies, so please attend. I won't talk more on my side, but unleash Henna then. Okay, can you hear me? Yes, you can totally hear me. Hello everyone, my name is Henna Pursiainen. I am the Akava Opiskelijat chairperson, and you are here at the Akava offices. Welcome. If I do a quick summary, who's familiar with Akava? Alright, that's a good rate. So, let's go take this short summary as a background. What kind of stuff? Engineer is too small there. Yeah, well, we'll go with physicist there. Social sciences, but we have lots of different areas of expertise from the university and from technical universities. We all share the common knowledge of being educated. Nowadays we use job market organization, a bit better than AYYE as a term. We have 36 member associations. If you're a member of tech or economists, you're also a part of AKAVA. So these, you have SYL and etc., you know, the other umbrella organizers. So we are kind of the AYYE job market technology is SYL. So we have about 630,000. I'd say a quarter of them are under 30. I don't know if it's visible in the public image. That's another. So as you can see, like we have this pictures with lots of students, and this one old guy is not that common. We represent people drawing wages, more students. We also represent entrepreneurs, people in business, so we can kind of have this, also have safety nets for problematic situations. So here, once again, so students in AKAVA, we have 115,000. That's a lot. And here you can see our committee. Through tech and economists, you can also attend, get involved. Less than a year ago, we were then in Pasila. We also think on especially people regarding to students, people who have just graduated, how do their expertise meet the job market. And to conclude, that's because you people like numbers, so do you know what this is? Anybody ring a bell? Jussi knows. So how much the people without jobs rate? So there's 15.8% less people who are unemployed on a higher education graduate level, so that's very good. Especially on the student side, we have the Harjoittelubarometri project. We checked on what the situation on different kinds of schools and tryouts and work practice, how is it panning out in different kinds of schools around Finland. So we made a kind of a barometer study on that. Then in social media, we have students in social media. I'll keep it short. Thank you. There's a lot of smoothies and food and stuff, so just eat it all away so it won't spoil. Before Kosti starts speaking, could we, so that since we are here and we have these experts, in short, if we could do 2 hot topics here. Students should know more. So we have 2 presentations, one about family leave and the development of family leave by Kosti, and the other is the FITech networking university project, which is on technical student matter. Very interesting, but still. So, Kosti, do I have mute on? All right, now you can hear me. So, thank you for the invite. My name is Kosti Hyppä, and I am paid by Suomen Ekonomit, Finnish economists. I've been attending cooperation and work contract negotiation, and I came from Eteläranta 10, and now I have to turn my own thinking around to whole new spheres. I'd say I use half of my working time in YTN work, in this associational organization who does this job framework agreements on the private sector for higher grades of employment. I've used a lot of time there. And the other part of my work is on the economist side, equality related items in the job market. When I was a student union active and I was in the University of Turku, I was the board chairperson. We had a really different kind of ideology. We had a very strict seating order in the meetings and punished if they would. We had the board who sat on the forefront. We had the board with their face on the representatives, and we wanted the people to have their matriculation examination hats on. So the atmosphere was a bit different than it seems to be here. So, to the point, since we are short on time, I'll try to be brief in this 15 minutes, so I can only do a little scratch of the surface in 15 minutes of this subject I'm going to present to you. Why we are here in Suomen Economit interested in family leave and developing it is that we are really interested in the equality in working life. We're interested in equality of working life because we have 50-50 men and women, and the problems in equality can be very well visualized in our line of work. Different. So, and in people with a higher education degree, we have a different kind of thing as opposed to normal workforce. Here, a kind of a short provocation to start with. And we usually have a person called Juha leading a person to stock market than a woman. We have different kinds of names of men here. These kinds of names of men are more proficient and more common in leading stock markets companies than women. This should kind of act as a wake-up call, and as what does the big picture look like. So what are the most common graduates and degrees? And we have engineer, and also on the economist side, very common. I'd say 30-40 years we've had men and women who've graduated from the economist side. It's pretty equal for 30-40 years. So we have the material, but the job market acts like women do not progress to the same level of leadership than men. And I can dare to say that family leave is one of the biggest influencing issues here. Why this is not equal. Wage differences based on gender. We've done a lot of research on that, and we did in 1998 for the first time. We did a research on between the economists what is the undefined wage gap. We know who's employing, what your job is and what your tasks are, this person's level of expertise that they're working on, how big the employer is it domestic, is it international, is it foreign, how many people in its staff, how much stuff, what are their level of graduation, upper or lower, university degree, how much experience they do have in working life or not. We did that for a few years, and 2 decades now. We have next year we have the next research that'll be finished. The work is being carried out right now. So if you want to take a guess from 1998 how this has gone, how has it progressed in 20 years, who thinks it has lowered? No? So you're all right, because the wage gap has not moved at all. So no positive development in 20 years. We've marked down some factors that may explain matters, but the wage gap is still there. It's very evident. The really base difference in wage gap is 24% between ungendered. But when we remove the explaining factors, we also have the levels of position, how much you've been away from the job market, how much do you work, are your wages based on results? So yes, we have these different kinds of fields of expertise, areas. Tech has done this research, I think, once, and I think it was 3% for engineers, 5%. So women in the technological field, their euro is 95 cents. So in technical side, this is very much better than on the business side. It's only a 5% difference. I can't say what is the result for that and what to draw from, but since that we have women who are more rare in technical sides, so it can be, I can't say a benefit, but it can be some kind of a factor that has an impact. But I won't analyze this more. Tech can analyze that if they want to. Hello, I'm interested very much in these wage differences. And has it been researched in that certain like stereotypically when you think about economists who go to the consulting business, they're mainly men. Has it been researched that like psychological differences in behavior between genders? That in the same time person, like a person who's regardless of gender acts or thinks in the same way. Yes, it has. It's very hard on a questionnaire type research that can you ask people like, do you easily take risks? But of course we know that men take risks more readily. They grab opportunities when offered. Men ask for larger wages for the same way job than women. Men ask for more raises in payment than women. They ask for bigger sums. So this is the job that we do. This is something that we need to do for women economists and women business students. We need to heighten that. Remember to ask for increases in wages often enough, and so forth. So here I'm coming to my point, which is family leave, and they are important in that I've heard that a recruiting consultant has said in these kinds of situations that when they are searching for a CEO or a manager, and if we're trying to offer this kind of positions to women, usually the answer is that, can I think on this for a few weeks, like how will I organize my house and home? Men generally just say yes on the spot. And family leave are important. When family leave is on place, how are they split down? Of course, it's better for women that as the shorter the time they spend away from the work market, the better the job market. But more important are the fact that the following 15-20 years are even more important when family life is taking place alongside working. We have ferrying people to kindergarten, hobbies and hobby carpooling. If they are focused on the women in the household, they cannot focus on their career with 100% as per the man can. So then I'm going to my topic. So here we have our current system for family leave. We are developing it and renewing it. We have a work group who has there until the end of this year to develop a new system, and after that we'll have the drafting of the legislation so that by the start of 2019 we should have this new family leave system in place. Most of people fail to realize that most of these days are shareable. There's the one for the dad and one for the mum, but most of this, which is the parent leave, which is the yellow block, it's the most bulk of it. They can be shared. They are freely shared between the father and the mother, or both parents. How do you think that, how much of this percentages, how much do fathers use? 15? 15%? 2? 10? 2 was best. And how about these, the grey bar? 2 percentiles. So, that was a bit wrong, So, this is 2015 situation. You can't really change that. The changes are very small. So, family leave, people who receive that, the money, we had 3% to our fathers, and we had 7% of the other household support. And why this system is like this, it's to do with the system. For fathers, it's really hard to have these leaves. How do you define these if you have two parents of the same gender? That I cannot say, but it won't swing this chart either way. Well, if comparing on the previous slide. If we have people or parents on the same gender, is the system same for them? Yes, and based on my own people, is that they're really more even from people I know. But this is a small take, but still. So, how do we do, and why do we do these systems like this? And economists can also give their grounds for their choosing. The father didn't use these days because they had a higher pay grade, and the mother kept the leaves because they had bigger wages. So this is a very feelings-based answer and feelings-based decisions. So, how does father didn't keep these days because they had cooperation negotiations to work. So the father had to be at work there to keep his job, and the mother had to be home to keep her job. So this was a very commonly repeating answer in our material. So here's the system, and the problem here, I think, is that we have too little
earmarked leaves for fathers and too little flexibility. Can father be fired if they take a paternal leave? No, it's a clear case of discrimination if that happens. If you are fired when you use any kind of parental leave, that's a clear discrimination, and it's very rare also. But the fathers feel that, especially those who are at workplaces, where previously people have not taken paternal leaves, they feel kind of this fear that how could I present this case to my boss that I want to take a family leave. And from my own group of friends, relatives, it depends on the job. On some workplaces it's obvious that the father takes paternal leave, and I have some friends who have received kind of negative feedback when they have used the family leaves for long. And we know that fathers usually use parents usually use maternal and paternal leaves and family leaves. And then there's kind of this care leave, which can be used until a child turns 3. You can have the housing supplement there, and a municipal added benefit. It's about 1,800 euros per month, and when you have this added supports, it's about 450 euros in Finland, and 200 euros is the municipal added benefit.
Se on 300 € tuo kotihoidon tuki, eli siis se on summana tosi pieni.
It's a very small portion, and fathers mostly use these earning-related leaves, especially ones which have been earmarked for fathers. And the issue with flexibility here is that, well, this is very inflexible, this system, because in practice, on principle, you can divide the family leave in such a way that you can put it, divide it half and half. And the other parent is 2 days per week in work, and the other works for 3 days per week. But in most families, they want that the mother is home until the family leave ends. That is until the child is 9 months. And after that, there is no such similar flexible option as before. And this is a bad thing. I'm saying that employees need to have this right, but if it would be good for the employers also, it would be a good model that parents could switch between working and being on leave. Also, this part-time job is very difficult in Finland. And this is very difficult, this other kind of leave, and the Central Party and the Finns Party think that, and also the Blue Party think that we shouldn't do anything about it, but other parties think that maybe we could reduce it a bit, or at least stagger it a bit, so that it wouldn't be that that people wouldn't want to stay so home for so long. But economists think that you get the most out of it if you are at home as long as possible. But that's not very good for the rest of the society. So the Central Party, of course, they want to talk about this freedom of choice. But is it freedom of choice that you can be at home as long as you want to? The freedom of choice would be that when the child is born, you would get kind of a lump of money and say that you can use it as you want. So I think this freedom of choice argument is it's not very convincing. In the international comparisons, when you look at them, in Finland, the parent leaves are pretty long compared to others. And also these parent-related leaves are pretty long. So it's the same group with Estonia and Hungary and Czech Republic. And I'm not sure if we want to be in the same group with these countries. And if we could have this comparison of that, which of the countries had the biggest wage differences between women and men. Well, it's not just one-to-one, but the biggest wage differences are focused on these countries which have long parental leaves. And of course, when you have this, because the child's benefit is of course very important. Some people think that the only possible place for a child is at home, and they're small. And if we have this kind of international comparison, we can see that 1 and 2 year olds, Finnish children, a really small percentage of them are at daycare compared to other Nordic countries, and from 3 to 5 year old child's difference is also very big. So Finnish children are at home a lot more than in other Nordic countries. And in Finland, this were a strong support of taking care of your children at home. And it's hard for me to think that it's the best thing ever, this taking care of children at home. And Heikki Hilma, social sciences professor, said this kind of funny thing that if taking care of a child at home would be the only rational option for children, then maybe we wouldn't have as much social problems among teenagers as we have. But I won't comment on that further. But we think that we could at least stagger the length of this support, which lasts for 3 years. But we could also reduce it a bit, the duration. Also, the employment rate of women in Finland and Sweden, well, this is explained by different statistical methods. It's not really as radical, the difference, as it looks here. The difference between women usually born children. And the government set a series of preconditions for this reform to the family leave. There is that kind of expense neutrality, increasing equality, possibility to take care of your child at home until they turn 3 years old. What's important to us is this promoting making returning from family leave easier, because that's very difficult for people in our association. Almost every day a member contacts one of our lawyers about problems related to returning to working life after family leave. And almost every week there's a real genuine case about these problems. And they are because that even if you are at home only for 1 year, the organization has changed a lot during the year. meaning that you may not have your old job anymore, it may not exist, or if someone has replaced you, they have been hired to a permanent position there. And we have to find out some kind of solution to this, and one that we proposed is that after family leave, there would be this kind of similar with pregnant women, that in the Finnish law we have that if an employer fires a person who is pregnant, then the employer must prove that the firing is not because of the pregnancy. And we would like that the same for a couple of months for family leave, that if the employer fires a person a couple of months after returning from family leave, they have to prove that it's not because of that. And if you look from the equality point of view, working life equality, we have to increase the leaves earmarked for fathers and also add increase flexibility. The system should be so that it would enable a lot of things and not restrict as much as it does now. There are dozens of different restrictions on how you should use your leaves in order for it to work. And also a system that doesn't encourage for long leaves like the current system does. And of course, if you reduce the length, duration of family leaves, then of course we should invest on getting employment for the people who, because the mothers whose labor market position is weakest use the most these parental and maternal leaves. Of course, we need to focus a lot on this group of people. And in the position in the labor market, it's very bad for them that they are such a long time on their maternal leave. And there are good models for family leave, and we have to find the one that is politically possible. The working group is working at the moment, but the work is not progressing very well, to put it bluntly. It's going very poorly. It's not very smooth. And the peculiar thing is that, of course, in working groups there are representatives from labor market organizations and other organizations. Some organizations have a different opinion in the working groups than they have in public, which makes developing this model a bit difficult. I don't know if I went over time, but I think there are time for questions. Economics want to make it more accessible for hiring people, to make it easier. But at the same time, they're also making it more difficult for new companies to hire young people who have just been married, for example. So could you specify your question? So if you have a small company that is hiring a person, and the person knows that they're soon having a child, and then you can discriminate on that basis. But I've heard from these persons that hire people that it's like they cannot stop thinking of it, that do they have to make the difficult, expensive recruitment process again after the person takes family leave. So is there a possibility to, for example, make it easier to hire the person who acts as a standing for the person who takes family leave, because it could prevent hiring people? Because it may be that they work for 6 months, then they have a child, and then the company has to pay them. I still don't understand your point that how are we making it more difficult. I think we're just facilitating it, because we would like the leaves to be divided more evenly, in which case the leave that one person has would be shorter, and indirect expenses would also be divided more evenly, and it would improve the situation of women, because if fathers would use more family leaves, then they would be more at home taking care of their sick children, for example. And according to statistics, they would take more responsibility for the family. So could you specify it a bit? So my point was that I have this small company. I'm just about to hire. I have two employees. I'm about to hire a third. I have two options. And I know that the applicant is just going to start a family, so I think that can I afford to hire that person if I know that they're about to go out on a family leave. So I think this is kind of a flaw that it doesn't matter that much for big employees who have thousands of employees. So single one doesn't really matter, but most, I think, have these smaller and medium enterprises, we have 300,000 of them. So if in every company, and if we could employ one person in every company, we wouldn't have any more unemployment, so the impact's going to be very big. And of course, we need to develop this, improve this, and dividing the expenses of parenthood, we've developed that, but that's a thing, an issue. There's a lot more disinformation than information. At some point, I googled division of parental expenses, and I read the articles that came up on Google, and the 15th was the first one that didn't have any errors, factual errors. And this Finnish companies, the federation, really spreads this misinformation a lot. But let's not go too much into that. But there's another question. Would it be better to have the state pay these expenses than the companies? Who pays for the expenses now? The company? Yes, I have some backup slides here. In the media, these things get pretty mixed up. Some people say that all employers should pay them, some say that the employers should father and mother, and some say that all employers or all employees should pay for them. But the correct one, which is a fact, is that they are divided among all employers and all employees. And employers pay more than entrepreneurs. They pay 70% of the costs big employers. And the problems caused to employers from the family leave is that this order is the same in small and big enterprises. First, it's kind of the absence of a key person. Second, finding a replacement. Third is the reorganization of work tasks. Four, the training of the replacement. And the fifth reason is the expenses. They're important in small companies, but there's already research of the problems that there was hundreds of companies, and it was the same also in small companies. And the expenses caused from family leaves, well, there's legislative expenses. For example, if a person is on family leave, they will have this pension money from 6 months, and it's paid vacation, so it will be refunded to the employer in full. Then there are this kind of costs related to labor agreements. For example, if according to the agreement, salary is paid during maternal leave, it's very common that, for example, for 2 or 3 months that is done. Then from this to the company, the share of how much the person would gain from Kela is reimbursed to the company. And also, if a person is at home taking care of their sick child, they have the legislative right for that, but they are not paid for it. They do not get paid unless such is stipulated in the labor contract. Then there is an indirect expense, for example, recruiting a replacement and training them, and according to these entrepreneurs, they say that people who are pregnant would be sick more often than other workers, but it is not true. There is no proof for that, because pregnancy is not an illness, and usually people who are pregnant are people who are very in good condition and are young. So they are sick less than people who are not pregnant. And also pregnancy boosts your immune system. So, and how this money is collected is that it is funded with this kind of income insurance, which is collected from all employers and people who get a salary, and it doesn't affect whether they use family leaves or not. And male-dominated sectors pay most for these family leaves because they have bigger salaries and they use the leaves less. So they pay most for it. And female-dominated fields usually. Yes, but companies still pay for it. So is your question that why don't we use taxes to pay for it? For example, the recruitment cost for a small company, and you have to do the recruitment yet again. It's difficult. Well, there's €2,500 compensation that is paid when that you get this lump sum when you go out on family leave. We think that's really wrong. We think that we thought it should be in the same amount as the net or gross salary of the employee, not this lump sum. It doesn't really make sense, this kind of a lump sum, when the collection of the money is earnings related. But it's a good question, and I think it's easy to think that it would be nice if we could use our tax money to pay for this, but I don't think no one in politics really wants to do that. If you think about this family leave system, it costs about €1 million per month, this system that we have now. Yes, any more questions? I think I'm really a lot over time. Yes, we could go on to the next topic now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. What's my time window? We don't? 10 minutes? Okay, I'll be brief. I'm Jari Jokinen from Teknikon Akateemiset. Doing research 2.5 years ago, I was from Aalto, old previous development manager of Aalto. And then we have Tuula Teeri, who came into the foundation. I was 8 years doing stuff with Aalto, so in part responsible for the merger. So I said that I have these slides, don't care for those, they're a bit too detailed, they're here for my memory's benefit. So, from the southwestern car manufacturing business in Finland started a quick rise. Well, for a long time we had large deficiencies in our progress, and then all of a sudden, regardless of the investment recession, we had an increase in our business. And in southwestern Finland, thereabouts needing recruitment should be doubled, which means that 350, 450 higher educated people. Here we have Jarmo Soinila from the Turku dockyards, the words we have here. We need all possible engineers that we can find, different kinds of boat builders and other experts, logistics, etc., etc. ICT, we can't really say what we don't need because we kind of need everything. So we're in this situation where we need all kinds. I'd say that we also need people in the shop, we need on the shipyards, we need people who can design, we need economists on the business side. And this is just one business. We also have lots of tie-in businesses to this, that we have a requirement for more employed people. We have Sanni Grahn-Laasonen, the Minister for Education, called me when I was having Christmas lunch last year. I was coming from Turku to Helsinki in the car, and this asked me that could I come and help solve this problem, and you don't really say no to those, so I said yes, and I did this kind of proposal on how to solve this. The interjection on cutting on education. For this lack of people, lack of experts, we need more experts. We have to have fast-paced activities that need to take place. We cannot really have people with less skills, less expertise, and we'd also need to do this in a kind of economically sustainable manner. We have, we don't really have any money, so we don't really have, we won't really receive lots of resources for education, so we shouldn't do any wasteful spending, and we also need to find a balance in the international scene, so that we can sleep our night in peace, as it were. Here I say that I did a 10-point program here. We also had one, we had the technical, we changed fit from fit ed because to our Swedish friends it wouldn't be good on number 5 for that name. So what is this FITEC? What is it? So starting point is that people with top knowledge, and to bring them into fruition, we need high-level education, especially in experimental fields of expertise and experience that accumulates very slowly. So thus we cannot have a university based on the needs of today. We should have done it several decades back. So in my proposal, we propose that technical universities gather their forces to answer these needs that we have. We need all the professors involved and their knowledge, and we will build a kind of a common university where we start to implement training from the latter end. So we'll find these jobs, and we'll find the people to do those jobs. And we'll have people moving to southwestern Finland to do those jobs, and it's one of the recruitment means on the technical side, at least, one of the big ones. The idea is also that, as Mayer's production manager said, that we need all kinds of expertise. It's not enough that we'll just make technical engineers. We need different kinds of engineers and different kinds of experts. Like we'd have one part that do this kind of burst and kind of increase in education is not enough. So we'll do this by 2020 and do an evaluation and see how we've fared in regards of southwestern Finland. What I'd like to raise this point, so this is one of the fastest processes that I've in a political scene and in a public level and in the university world that I've seen. I'll have to raise my hat and salute the minister and the technical universities. In 5 months we're in the process where I handed in this report. In 1 month from here, the universities will give their credence on cooperating in this 20 million investment. So here we have the money coming in, and we started with Mikko Huppa, this preparation work that we'll check on detail. What does this mean, this kind of technical cooperation? And we hired the first people to do this kind of survey work on what we need. Last Friday, we signed this cooperation agreement, so we have this consortium really in existence, in reality. And then we have the LUT in Lappeenranta, this training program regarding FITEC, which is starting. It started last week. And we have this first case in southwestern Finland, in Turku. That's the first case, and with the technical universities cooperation, we could bring training to that area. We have this diploma work that's upcoming, and after we could maybe get to the ideology that we could use the last work of master studies to cooperate with these parties. I'll have to skip some slides here. Go on FITEC's side on the evaluation. As said, this project was very, very fast, taking into account that usually when you develop university training, it's not something you accomplish in 5 months, which is what happened here. Another thing that happened here only happened to me once, which was when I was doing OHMS budget surveys regarding the Aalto University and monitorizing it. We had a $500 million funding that we were applying for. So the idea was here and there that all the euros that were required were given. So this will open training between universities and education, and it's pretty transparent as a whole. Technical University Corporation has come together. Aron Eero Eloranta have done a really great job in here, especially the same kinds of other technical universities. Like, well, we have these technical universities since 2009 that have profiled into their research. So this is kind of a mirror image on the education side. So we're not kind of copy-pasting. Well, we're kind of taking advantage of these kinds of knowledge that we have in different universities, so we won't offer copy-paste levels in different universities, but rather take advantage of the movers and shakers, the people who know things that we already have. Another part is that we've been under a lot of pressure, especially in the companies in southwestern Finland, like we should have an emboldened faculty. And how can we just make this kind of new faculty altogether? The university makes its own decision what kind of professors to recruit, different kinds of opportunities. Like if we know that if we have a new faculty that would be made here, it would mean that here and now today the first master would graduate in 6 years or so. So it's not fast, and the level of research will not rise in 4 years or so. It will require several decades for the level of research to actually rise up to the level standard, and it's pretty expensive, especially when moving in these kind of experimental. I'd say we have a professor in Aalto which is worth about 1.5 million. So 1.2, 1.5 million. Let's say we recruit 20 new professors to have a new faculty that would require 30 million or so in cash. So you'd have to be really, really serious about doing this if you start to throw that kind of money around. So this is a worry that we've talked with Joona, that how do we ensure that the students involved, how does the community draft itself? How can we ensure that they are being taken care of, that they feel at home in southwestern Finland, and how can they form their own community there? And this is something where Tech and the student unions have done good work, and Tech has offered its own support in this endeavor and process. And another worry is that do we want in this matter to take care of that we have enough people to do the jobs that we need doing, or do we want to do politics politics in the sense that what has been part of this whole project in a sense, like because like hopping onto the train, and that's they've not really taken to our proposals so far. But this is pretty much what I was talking about. This ideology here. I would be glad to answer questions and comments, and hear comments from you. That is, we're a bit in a hurry, but we could take one question. I could actually ask myself, if nobody else will provide that, a high-quality question. So that we have this dock systems in southwestern Finland, but at the same time we have this new ICT bomb that's brewing. In the future, would you predict that, do we have this kind of solution would be the solution? For example, the ICT business. I'd say that we will use this formula in a few problem systems, but I'll help on going back to the ICT part, but I won't go. But as you can see from the Vaasa region energy cluster, we have the battery technology that's coming up. So that would be something that would require international cooperation. But for example, the Vaasa University research broadness is it can only be so broad. And the companies and the needs of companies and the potential could be quite big. And the government currently, in the second economic review, we placed a few million euros. Like we can make these FITEC Turku style surveys and these solutions to other parts of Finland as well. Based on ICT bomb and the requirement, it's been on the tabloids a lot. Let's say we 2030, who can see up to 2030, we need 50,000 ICT experts. So it's kind of out and about. We should be more in the know. We should know it a lot better. We should be more experts on, like, we need these top-notch experts. But of course we need different kinds. In addition to these top-notch code people, we will need all kinds of levels of knowledge of coding, ICT, etc. And there's all kinds of different knowledge and expertise in between. I hope that we could understand this problem a bit better before rushing into find solutions or do even rational solutions at that point. So thank you very much. Thank you, Tiari. So it's very current. Let's go to our own meeting. So maybe Nico would care to join me here up front. Do you want to cry out to the hall where we have some board members there? Maybe like a really short bathroom break?
Petter was supposed to do the news, but he's not here yet, so let's start with the organization project. People asked about them in the group chairperson meeting. That organization project that we had previously, I would say that we were divided into segments. It has been difficult because discussions related to community, going through all of them at the same time, has been very complicated during this year. We're talking a lot about this Teekkari policy paper and things like that. And we've done a lot of this discussion related to brand. And it's hard to kind of identify what is the situation for the structure of this member base. At some point was talked about having several different alternatives, but we haven't done that yet. And how we are going on from here is that we'll try to look into if this organization structure process, updating it, which could mean thinking things separately, when previously we thought about what is this lists and special associations, what is their future, and how could that be done in the best way possible. But we intend to work on that this year and try to come up with a design the project for next year if we find the direction and can draft it into a project. But we've discussed this issue the whole year, so it's been on the agenda a lot. And that's related to the previous motions. Doesn't work, this computer here. Good. This motion about the brooch that was done last year, and that the issue was that could you have this kind of Aalto brooch or cockard for the student union, because it has been it is a very old tradition. We had a discussion about it and said that we will move this discussion as part of the brand work. And this year, in the brand work, we talked about these emblems, insignia, and at this point we're happy, satisfied with the current emblems and insignia, and about these different cultural blocks, insignia, and we also see it important that the identity of the different cultural blocks remain as part of the Aalto identity. And then talking about this cockard as a product, and is it the best solution for boosting the Aalto identity? So we discussed about that, but we haven't talked about the products from the brand point of view yet. But that's what we have done with the cockard motion was anonymous recruitments. As I promised, we'll try it out. If we have a recruitment situation that we can prepare carefully. We had several recruitments this year and also some coming up. For example, recruiting an AD. And Nico has been the recruiter and has said that he will try out the anonymous recruitment when we have the situation for that possibility. About these kind of channels for easy or lightweight influencing, is that Nico has written the answer here, but I'd like to encourage you to use this channel of influencing that we have done now. Ask for answers to questions you may have and also propose questions that we can answer or look into. And for the future, I have an idea for you that even though we have the chairperson meetings of the groups, then here also in the office 15 minutes session, we could also have that the groups could specifically prepare themselves to ask something from the board, and if then receive the answer immediately. We can return to that later. And this in addition to the previous news. And we also have the new provost. So tomorrow we have a welcoming coffee for the new provost. We'll greet the provost with the board. And the provost is a very good partner for the student union. So any questions?
Hyvä, kiitos Joonalle kuulumisista ja tosiaan
Thank you, Joona.
sieltä jo Mikkelin kokouksen esitellyistä kuulumisista voisi.
And also news, if you want to go look through the news, President Mikkeli, you can go through them to see more. And we looked through the attendance list and we saw that there are 25 persons already here, so let's have a count now to make sure that there are enough people. So people who have the right to attend, please. Well, in that case, let's lock the doors now. Well, I think I'm ready to leave. So, welcome to Representing Council meeting. 2nd of November, it's 7:55, opening the meeting. Item 2, recording members of the council who are unavailable, disqualified, ineligible, resigned and present. Now, Nico, you can have a roll call. So, let's start. Please call out if you're here. The one whose name was not announced. Yes, Kaivola here. We have 25 representatives present. There are also some other people who want the right to be present, the right to speak. Our Chief Financial Officer, Väätäinen, and Ahto Ramo, our organization specialist. They have the right to speak. Closing item 2. Moving to item 3, recording the lawfulness and quorum of the meeting. According to regulations, we have quorum if there are at least 25 representing council members present, and also the chairperson. And the invitation has been published on the official bulletin board and on the website and on the mailing list at least 7 days before the meeting. These conditions have been met, so we have a quorum and the meeting is lawful. So moving on to item 4. Summoning two scrutinizer of the minutes and 2 vote counters. And also the deputies for these persons. Please make some suggestions. I can be a scrutinizer, Filman. Yes, Nylen, second scrutinizer. Koponen, vote counter, and Sovia, second vote counter. And if it's okay with you that you are each other's deputies, yes. So Filman and Nylen are scrutinizers of the minutes, and Soivio and Koponen are vote counters. And these people act as each other's deputies. This has been decided. Closing item 4, moving to item 5, confirm I'm sorry, confirming the agenda on item 5. So the agenda has been sent with the invitation to the meeting. I suggest that we will not have a meeting break. We'll have about 2 hours reserved for the meeting, and then we will have a very refreshing event after that. So if that's okay with you, we will confirm the agenda sent with the invitation to the meeting. Closing item 5 and move to item 6, announcements. I'd like to announce that AYYE representing council elections are now in progress, so thank you all the election coalitions who have signed up, and also our chief election officer. And the voting percentage is about 17 at this point, which is, when taking consideration the date, the situation is better than last year at this point. Another announcement that we have the Teekkarius anniversary week, which is also going on right now. I'd like to announce also that all people, regardless of field of study, are welcome to join all of our events, and you can find more about them online, about the Teekkari Tradition Week. Anything else besides that it's now in progress? The week? Well, it will be in progress. It starts tomorrow, yes. Any other announcements? No. Closing item 6, moving to item 7, latest news from the central office. Chairperson of the board just presented them just a while ago. Anyone who would like to have a kind of questions or comments on that? No. So the proposal is that the representative council decide to place on record the board report on the latest news from the central office. That's been decided. Closing item 7, moving to item 8, latest news from the committees. So, Chairperson, do you have anything to add to the news from the committees? I don't think there are any new news unless some of the committees themselves or the members have something to say. So nothing to add. No news from the committees. The representative council decided to place on record the board report on the latest news from the committees. Closing item 8, moving to item 9. News on the brand work project. Our brand correspondent then has said that do the presentation and ask questions. That was the same as in Mikkeli if you want to. So Nora is sick, and that's why she asked me to do this. There is some kind of some new information about the implementation of the brand project on the last slide. So now we'll go through the workers and the volunteers, how they see this brand in their everyday lives and their own actions. And in discussions we'll also think about the relationship of sections to the AYYE brand and how to make the implementation of the brand as easy as possible for the workers in their everyday lives. And we talked with Aava and some other sections already, and also with the employee sectors. After the discussions, we will create the tools and framework for the implementation. So the implementation plan will become clearer in the future. No questions. Closing discussion. The proposal of representative council decided to place on record the news from the brand work project. To be decided. Closing item 9. Moving to item 10. Latest news on the student center project. And Huhtanen and Lampi will give us the latest news. Or just Huhtanen? Hey, let's have Lampi also up here. So. Hello everyone. The situation of the student center was presented a couple of weeks ago in Mikkeli. And in 2 weeks, the situation has not really changed much. But let's go through this quickly. And especially if you have any more questions, And people who weren't in Mikkeli can also see what the situation is. So Lampi can go through the presentation this time. Gee, thanks. And our last meeting where we had quorum, we decided on the preconditions in June. And we accepted the project plan. Now we have tendered for project consultants. We talked to them how they would start doing the project, how they see this process and this project, and then we decided to choose unanimously one of them. And the thing that we're doing now is that we're doing this project planning, the extension, description of the facilities, cost estimate. Please, don't leave because we don't have quorum if you leave. We can decide on it if not all people were not present. Can Aalto come say to open the door to the staff? Yes, let's continue. So we're working on the project plan this autumn and also from the start of next year if needed. And when we've finished it, we can decide on how to go on with the project. And in the project plan, we describe the building itself very much in detail, and then there will not be any big changes after that. From the preconditions, it mentions some very detailed descriptions of facilities. For example, that TF has these certain facilities, and so it won't change that much after the plan is finished. So that's the point of the project plan. And we'll go through the project plan that we will meet with the consultant every few weeks. And at the end of November, we will have the first draft of it ready. Then we can involve the members also in this through the committee and have some open workshops on your opinions and what's good, what's bad, what needs to be focused on more. So it'll be kind of this like a Excel kind of facility program where we will describe these functions and events and their relationship with each other. So everyone, all people who don't even know about anything about the project, they will be fully informed of it when they read the project plan. Also, there we talked about that, what we're not doing. So this does not obligate us to do anything or to go through with the project plan. I'll obligate us to any big expenses for the building. I think we can go forward. Well, about the schedule. What else? This is what I talked about Mikkeli, and then we've met with the zoning architect after that, and Hahtala, and had a workshop with the central office. And I think TF had the project consultant, and we gone through the facilities. Any questions, comments? So any comments or the schedules for the workshops, when we will get more detailed information on them or their scope? Well, we aim to organize at least one workshop that is open to everyone, to find out more about the subject. Then the committee is a very important tool. It's kind of a small version of a miniature version of a representing council. And then we can make sure that the representing council also agrees. That's the point of the committees. And what else? At the end of November, we will most likely have the first draft ready, so that we will have this comment round that everyone can participate in. So, and we just want more schedule information so that people can prepare whether think about participation. And what is about the committees, I think it's a good point that I'd like to remind you that You can participate in the work by contacting members of the committee that you know, and then also get your own points of view heard. Korpelainen and Sivonen. Korpelainen, thank you for the overview. I just started thinking that you said that this doesn't obligate us to pay anything yet, without any expenses. So does that mean that it doesn't obligate us to build anything? But I understood correctly that if something is decided in the project plan, then that is kind of like locked in. That if you go through with the project, then that obligates us to that. So it's a very important document if I understood correctly, and if I did, then does the Student Union Representation Council have a clear enough picture what we want to do with the building, and do we have the resources and preparedness to commit ourselves to this in 2 months, within 2 months? Yes, you understood correctly that I don't mean to belittle the importance of the document. Yes, it also describes this kind of a division of facilities, what kind of facilities we'll have. 2 months is a pretty rough estimate. We're not hurrying with this at all. So if we find out that it takes 4 months, then it takes 4 months. But so 2 months is the estimate by the consultant, that's how long it usually takes. Of course, it's very much more complicated case than usually. So it may be that we'll have a draft of the project plan, and then we see that we really can't afford this. And then we reiterate it as long as that we can afford it. And it's obvious that we have to do it that way. It's a good question, thank you. Well, that's a question to you, more to us, members of the Representation Council. Do we have, as representatives and voices of the members, to have a clear enough picture of what we want to do with this project? Is it clear to you? Do you feel that now as a student union, in 2 or 4 months, we can decide on something as important as this? It's very important to hear. Yes, I think it became more clear after the first draft also. It's probably kind of hard to see these abstract visions. Is there more comment? That said that you can say that the committee's opinion is kind of the same as the Representation Council opinion, but I strongly disagree. The committee's task is to prepare matters for the Representation Council, and then the Council decides on them. And I hope that the board members understand it. The Representation Council is the highest decision-making organ in the student union, not a committee. Well, I said that if a committee has a strong opinion, then we can be pretty sure that the Representation Council agrees with them. And the committee people also consult people from the Representation Council when forming their opinion. But of course, the committee is not a decision-making organ in the same way as the council is. Yes, I'll continue that. We cannot be like that because in committee there's a selected just some people. It doesn't represent the view of the Representation Council. If we want to have the Representation Council's view on things, then we have to search for that. Yes, the board recognizes that what the committee decides doesn't necessarily mean the same thing what the Representation Council thinks. Yes, thank you. Tasade, I have a question. How much can we afford to reiterate the project plan then when it is brought to us at the council? So is now our last chance to give the input on that, or can we wait to see what the draft is like and then tune it a bit if it seems wrong? Yes, of course, that's the whole point of the process. That Representation Council decides on it, and if you think that it looks wrong, then there are 2 solutions, 2 options. You can rework on it or abort it, and I think that we shouldn't abort it because of this. We should just try to redefine it to make it as good as possible. That's what we're gonna do. And as previous speakers also said, with the project plan, the form of the future project will be defined pretty clearly, and in the future expenses will be defined. 90% of the expenses will be defined based on the project plan, and we reiterate it several times if you think that it doesn't look good. I think everyone agrees that it's a very important document, and approving it requires for all members and all represented council members think that what they want to do with the project, what they want from it, and then we get more information from it. Then we have to look at it more in depth. And we also have to have a more detailed schedule on the process so we can prepare for it beforehand. Yes, in the spring we had this kind of schedule, so we can make a similar one now. It will be at least a few weeks prior that in 2 weeks there's a chance to influence things. We have to know about it beforehand. Does Chairperson have something to say? There's good points, and I'd like to specify myself that, of course, we have the preconditions that describe the starting points of the 3 different parties taking part in the project, and from the preconditions we can find many different options of implementing the project even better than what it says in the document. So that's what we're going to do now, and we could have like 2 options that we will talk about with all the 3 different parties and with this group. That's what looks like the best option. So the work that we've done now, or that we are going to do now, is to do with the preconditions also. So any other comments or requests for floor? No. Proposal was that the council decided to place on record the news and the student center. It has been decided.
Closing item 10, moving on to item 11, change of Aino's policy paper into a regulation. And Konsta Huuki will have some presentation. When we already talked in the Mikkeli meeting, we decided that we would do these matters, so a very broad stroke summary on what's the issue about, after which we'll do some points that were evident in Mikkeli, and if somebody who was present in Mikkeli wants to add something, or somebody has something else to say, they have the opportunity, but primarily not a long discussion on this item, because we've already done this once in Mikkeli. So Huuki would maybe in a few words do what it's about, an explanation. So this Aino policy paper, which is a guiding force to Aino's editorialship, has been changed into a regulation. The idea is that it will bind Aino to be a paper magazine. It'll give the chief editor some more freedom. It won't force, in addition to the chief editor, otherwise that we should have the editorial committee in the same form as before. We also had the requirement that we'll have editorial in 2 languages, Finnish and English. These would be the proposed main points. So in Mikkeli we already discussed this item, and if my surmise is correct, we already all agreed pretty unanimously that the word form is very nice and very proper. Is there anybody else who wants to add something, some comments on what was discussed in Mikkeli, or comment otherwise? The change of Aino's policy paper into a regulation. Right, so no requests for floor, so we will move to decide, and the proposal was that the representative council decided to accept the new regulation according to the appendix and to remove the approval made in the meeting 12/2012 on the usage of Aino's policy paper. We'll decide according to the proposal, decided. Thank you. Thank you to Konsta. We'll close item 11 and move on to item 12, preliminary discussion on updating AYY's policy papers. Petter is not here, so Joona would maybe in short talk about what's this about. So, the process is about, well, the advocacy committee, like Sivonen said, that we should make these preparations and come with some clarifications to some policy papers, because there's quite a few overlaps in some of our policy papers. And then I can also maybe remember what those policy papers were. The one on tuition fees and another one. So we had two items, no other changes than stylistic form. So that's what the process currently. So no policies will be changed in this accordingly meeting, but we'll have the stylistics and the word form changed a bit. So the format. They'll be preparing, presenting. The committee has decided that these AYYE policy papers would be moved into a more unified format, so they would be easier to understand and read. And they've gone through all the policy papers. We have 2 policy papers that could be changed into this new format, and these other policy papers could not be changed because they felt that there are other requirements for change for these policy papers. So mainly a stylistic change would not be enough. We need to check the contents of the policy papers proper. So they came to this conclusion that this could be something that could be on the agenda for the Representative Council next year on a bigger scale as well. People who were in Mikkeli, do you have anything to add or questions regarding this process? I could maybe ask Joona that, does the board have continued discussions or things like these had been proposed from the committee? Well, we have not had any broader conversation on how we should continue with updating the policy paper. But in general, we've talked about how it would be sensible that at the same time we're doing these strategic updates on part of the direction of the student union on a 24-month basis. So on the first season, it would be nice that all these policies and broad strokes would be undertaken on the second year. So all representative councils would go through both of these and they would be actively updated. And what comes to word form and stylistics, be it one document or drafted several documents, this is a discussion that may be taken. But the more essential is that our policy papers are up to date and they would have as many discrepancies and overlappings as possible. And of course, regular browsing to see that they are so is important. Since we are in preliminary discussion on updating these policy papers, I'd say that in the Mikkeli meeting we had this clear consensus that this is good work, we should continue doing this, and on next year's agenda would be very important. So from Sivonen, we have a request for floor. Short comment, I think it's an excellent idea that we've had each representative council go through these. So because it would bring all the representative councils this kind of idea that this is our thing. Most of all, these are very, very old as far as policy papers go, in our vaults, as it were. Moving to decide, and the proposal was that the Representative Council decided to place on record the preliminary discussion on updating AYY's policy papers. Decided according to the proposal. Decided. Closing item 12, moving on to item 13, accepting the policy paper on tuition fees. And based on the process we did, the advocacy committee has gone through this policy paper and taken a closer look at it, and we will propose its change to a newer format of stylistics and word form. And the format will be the basics that first we have this clear worded portion on where we tell about these policies, the goals, and then after that we'll have these sort of like bullet points maybe a clear format for some on Hughes or Syl's policy papers. The idea is that the number of essential points is very clear. We've removed some parts that are no longer relevant pertaining to the matter. For example, like we have the EU ETA people tuition fees. We have those in place currently, so it's logical to have that there clearly and clarified. Hope everybody has acquainted themselves with this paper, but this is according to the old policy paper. So, question. We have this date, which was on the Mikkeli meeting. We should correct that. That's a good point. So updating the date. We will accept it with these changes. If we will accept it, we will accept the changes that we will have the updated date. Usually there's a notification on errors like date. Any other questions regarding this tuition fee policy paper acceptance? No? So we will move to decision, and we will have the representative council decided to accept the policy paper according to the appendix with the change of date, according to the appendix as said. Decided according to the proposal, decided. Closing item 13, moving on to item 14, accepting the policy paper on new students. Nico will open that. Clearly and concisely, this in essence is the same one as the old policy paper, but the word form and format is updated and more unified to this new style. Any comments, questions regarding this, other than the date, which is also incorrect in the appendix? All right, so we'll move to decide. The representative council decided to accept the policy paper according to the appendix with the change of date to the correct date. Decided according to the proposal, decided. Closing item 14, moving on to item 15, preliminary discussion on the agriculture policy paper. Even though that's withholdings have changed a bit in the policy paper, but we'll still have a preliminary discussion. Does Peppi want to come up and do some presentations? If we have any requirements, I'll just come. Okay. We'll just go there and do a little short summary on what we discussed in Mikkeli. And it'll go so that we have a few weeks back, we had this the agriculture policy paper preliminary discussion that was proposed, and then after that, we kind of had this straight idea of accepting the policy paper has been removed. Rather, in Mikkeli, we discussed on general that regarding the agriculture, we have these issues and making decisions, the construction of culture and the policy paper. Was Peppi want to open this up a bit? So some kind of system has been seen as required and wanted. We had the discussion on the Dekari hymn last year, and this year we have the right to use the hat this year. So the representative council will have to make a decision based on Dekari culture, but the idea in the last meeting that we shouldn't have these meeting discussions, or it would be really fruitful for the preliminary discussion instead of the representative council to do these discussions, that we would have these decisions done somewhere else than these meetings, on another platform at least, that we could bring them forth to the representative council after this. So, and maybe change this power of decision from the representative council to another entity, so we could maybe form this entity that could make this very open-ended at this moment, and I think the end result would be that the hat question would be decided by other parties than the representative council. Okay, Nico wants to comment here? Yeah, what I'd like to fill in that regarding the same issue as from DF, we have this. Well, I can't say from DF, but from several members, this initiative that will be brought to the representative council up for decision 8 weeks from the initiative being brought forth. So I will reiterate from Mikkeli meeting that we had this, many representative council members expressed this idea that we wouldn't have to have these culture issues up here in the meetings of the representative council. We will actually draft these issues at the office, and between the members who were present in the Mikkeli meeting we had this consensus that this preparation work done by the office. We have the community committee very well present here in that decision making. And so in effect with me preparing some sort of work group for the process, and then the representative council would be decide that this decision would be made by this committee or this council work group, who could actually pan out on how to make the decision. Sounds very, very complicated, but actually is that the representative council wouldn't have to do this decision on what is the agriculture and what do we have to do with this and that, but rather have a work group of experts to think of this. We have these policies on culture. We should have culture that should form on itself, or by itself, not by decisions made by people not very motivated to do so. But up to this item, we have a bit longer for this item, because if you have something that you wish to bring up right now as members of the representative council, we'll open the floor for this, an opening discussion. So Nico maybe would want to reiterate on this issue, that what have we done so far? Well, I'm thinking, I'm still recovering from my vacation in Thailand, but no, not really. What are the next steps? So we will continue with the matter once this meeting has concluded. Any comments on this? Does this look like a good approach? Like the office with the committee, we will prepare this issue so that the representative council could decide on making this kind of work group that could, in next year, their task would be to create some sort of working model for this. So I'll have to say that the office is very busy with issues like the budget, the action plan, etc., planning for next year. We have our hands full at the office currently. So, and we have the Seoul General Assembly coming up, so the time to discuss this issue next time would be after the General Assembly has concluded. So, preparation work, etc. we could start as fast as possible, hopefully, by the end of, well, by December's meeting. I would also like to add that, like I've been here, of course, with the preparation work, we're hearing from the guilds and all the other stakeholder groups, and the actual work will be happening in the committee and the office, but we will hear from these parties that are well privy to the situation, that this won't be a black box where things just spring out of, but we will have our stakeholder groups very much involved in the process. Any requests for floor from the representative council members? So we'll continue in the December meeting. And next meeting we will, in short, discuss this initiative by the members, which we'll have to answer by according to the regulations. So, all right. I will close the discussion, and we will decide that the representative council decide to place on record the preliminary discussion on the agriculture policy paper as per proposal. Decided. Closing item 15, moving on to item 16, changing the association regulation sections 7, 8 and 10 regarding the required number of members and the requirement of notifying the student union. We have Aalto and Ville will be presenting this item. In a few moments. Let's get those slides over there. Last time pondering like, how can we have this many slide templates up and running here? So yes, before the year ends we have to have as many types of slide as possible here up on. So, previously when we've discussed this many times, you've received material. We went to Mikkeli, we did the bus trip, we discussed it on the way. Going to Mikkeli. There we have the PowerPoint. No. I put them on SharePoint. Just browse it via PDF then. So, we have the regulation change on 7, 8 and 10. And in this document that has been sent to you, we have these changes. Green ones are stuff that's coming in, and the red ones are stuff that's being removed, and items and points. And we want to change it so that all associations would have this requirements of member numbers and amounts. And currently we have the new requirement of 7 members of AYYE, so we can ensure that this is a student activity. Can I have the other slide? I'll have the PowerPoint up and running soon. Can we have a question while we're waiting for the PowerPoint? Where does the number 7 come from? It's a nice number and everything, but why is it number 7? I don't know. We've had this question before. The number 7 in this case comes from the fact that it's the same as the first listing requirement. Originally, we didn't use any of my working hours to check on the history. I'd say it was from TKY times, the requirement of exactly 7 members from 10, 15 years or 30 years back. That I cannot answer. Why is it 7? But I can have the grounds that it's the same number of members than the first listing. Like, it shouldn't be higher than 7 at least. So 7 members is enough that you can have a student activity. So it was been deemed as enough back in the day. So don't have smaller associations than 7 people. So, here we have changes a part of the whole from the regulation, as you can see. Red ones removed, green ones added. If I can get the next one. That's the final version. No? Yes? All right. So with this change, we are having this proposal for change for the regulation. This has been gone again and again. We've had general questions a lot. No real strong opinions here or there. If you don't have any other questions. Do you have any other questions or comments regarding this change that has been proposed? I'll ask after that. How many associations will we lose from the registry if we will put it like this? How many associations would be removed from the... Well, I could answer that, of course, that this has been implemented on the associations that are already in the registry of AYYE's list of associations. After the association notice, this won't be something that tomorrow we'll send goodbye messages via email to this and this association, like, you're out. But no, we have some information from this and the previous years. Ville has, like we're talking about 1 to 3 association realistically speaking. That's a positive problem to actually get 7 members of the student union into their association if they want to act in the student union sphere of influence. This is of course my personal opinion. Any requests for floor? There are no requests for floor for a very well worded presentation. And the proposal was that we accept the regulation changes according to the appendix We will decide according to the proposal decided. We'll close item 16 and moving to item 17, preliminary discussion on the budget for 2018, which will be presented by Economics Manager Väätäinen.
This is an issue that arose of discussion in the chairperson meeting, and this is a very important issue, so please pay attention and ask good questions. Thank you. Good evening. Let's go through the preliminary discussion. I have some new material in addition to the one sent to you. There are a couple of new slides. So the idea is that the main emphasis today is not on figures, which are not yet ready, but on the structure and on these issues mentioned in the headlines. So if you have your opinions on instructions for the future, please tell me. I will start with the structure. So for years we've had this kind of a four-part division in our budget. We have this advocacy work, which is the non-profit activities, the support activities, investment activities, and real estate activities. Now, the current board, as Secretary General, have taken matters forward in such a way that we've combined, as you can see here, let's forget about these non-profit activities and support activities and talk about university student union activities and have everything related to it, expenses and income related to it. Put it up there that you have wished for previously, that will show you more in detail where this entering as income comes to our profit to the student union. Our investment activity remains pretty much the same. There's a lot of money there, but it's simple. And our real estate activities is such a big thing because there are all those 60 million of rental profits and expenses and things like that. So we'll talk about it, but not merge it with this other entity, so as not to mix up these cash flows. Well, previously we've put that corporate cooperation and membership fees into means of income, but we need also other means of income alongside these. A portion of the finance investments. Talked about the framework for all these years. So we'll focus from the investment activities, focus about 500,000 euros to cover the share of the operational costs. Next year we have 520,000 euros transferred over there to cover our operational costs. And we've also done in our housing management and rental service fees, we focused it to the operational costs because we have a lot of costs related to housing management, construction, financial systems, financial management, and it's been about €1 per square meter per month that we focused on, that we want to focus on the rents. We will do this in a very transparent way, and you can see in the next picture. Forget about the figures, look at the structure. You can see the total fundraising that we have for the student union activities. We have membership fees, investments, the profits from them, income from housing management. We're trying to find a better name for that. There is management of the fees for the management property or what, and then also the corporate communication, corporate cooperation. The three first one, they are very big figures. The corporate cooperation is a bit smaller, and we can reach 2.5 million euros of income with these. And we can use that to cover our operating costs. That includes all these former non-profit and support activities, which is now the student union activities. Then we'll have this draft about what would be the headlines, the main sections. We have the fundraising. Then we have the common costs, and admin, advocacy services, and communication support functions. All of these will be presented. If you approve this structure, we will present all of them in the final budget, each on their own page. But this is the big picture, the structure for it. The goal is to reach a zero sum, to even out the figures. They are still a work in progress, but once we have all our expenses in order, we will look at the income. For example, to find the rental and other things related to properties, we have many open questions related to them. Let's move on to other issues. So for the income, we will talk about here. Membership fee. Just to mention that we will not going to change it anyway. And we're not going to change it in the recent years also, or at least not increase. Maybe we could decrease it. And the next picture, you can see the development of the membership fee. So 62 euros is the portion per member of the student union, and 54 euros is for the student healthcare, which remains the same. Then corporate cooperation, one thing that we're going to talk more about today. It's income that we use to fund our activities. We have these cooperation contracts with companies, but then we also have these external services, the calendar and Ainos ad sales, and pay provisions for that. And we intend to separate these, our own operations, and these external services. So this is very small text. This is our current situations. Hope you have your glasses. So the gist of the matter is that what we budget for this year as profit for corporate cooperation. First, we budgeted for income 110,000 euros and expenses 66,000 euros. So 43,000 euros, and we've exceeded it already at the end of October by a couple of thousand of euros. So we received income, but our expenses have been smaller than we thought. So the situation at the end of October is plus 64,000, about 20,000 more than the entire budget for the entire year, and we still have November and December. So the situation is good, and if we compare it to the last year, we've already achieved it. So, for corporate cooperation, our team has prepared different options. We'll reach the end of this presentation. Pyro will also talk more about them as a topic of discussion. So what do you see about our investment, how much we should invest, and what are the risks? Okay. About investments, we have 40 million investment capital, a lot of tied capital, a lot of funds, but what has been allocated to the operational side in the long run, the maximum is 500,000 euros and 520,000 euros next year. You can see that on the income side. Then you have these real estate fees. We have a lot of real estate, and we'll focus the service fee, the rent. There are many things that we're doing. House management for our properties, basic renovation, construction, our rental system. That's part of our basic activities, taking care of this rental system, bot transactions. We have many different systems, Domo and Navi, and to also have to pay for them. There's also this accounting, auditing and financial management, and all this will be put together, and from that we will allocate for the real estate an average amount which we have not yet decided, but the rough estimate is €1 per square meter per month. And that is used to cover our other operations. Okay. One line was the administrative costs. I think they have been under general expenses before. These administrative costs for translators, HR manager, secretary general, board and representative council chairperson fees, general administrative and office costs. Community memberships have been also put here, and also the China cooperation. That's the big picture. One topic of discussion is also the strategy allowance. For this year we have €20,000 to be used for the strategy. And our meeting on Tuesday with the group chairpersons, we talked about that our real estate strategy, to implement it, we would need a kind of a own allowance for that. And that's a good idea. And maybe I think we should do that, because we have a lot of real estate and a lot of money going on in there, so it's a really big separate lump of money. We can include that in the budget, but this €20,000 is for this year. Then we want to talk about advocacy or influencing, lobbying. So we budgeted for 4 expert man-years, but otherwise it's pretty much the same as previously, so the structure doesn't change that much. Community operations. Well, at the cost of 2 producers under personal costs, we'll put all events on one line, all volunteer activities on one line. And then the grant budget will be incorporated into community operations. The last thing, an important issue, service operations. We have our service manager working for us this year, has done a very good job. Now service operations will look at it as one big whole. It will have both housing services and other member services in the same team. Next year we have a renovation where this whole service unit will be moved upstairs in Otokaare. So they will be working on 2 floors. Everyone can be on the same floor. We're looking very much forward to it. And AYYYE magazine is also a member service, so it will be put under this. Then we have also the rental services that are not under these ARA-funded housing buildings. Servimäki, Rantasauna, Van and the Autonappi app. We tried it this autumn. I don't know if we're gonna continue with this next year. It's a very, very small thing. These are all for the service unit. Last we have the support activities, which of course supports the entire main activities that we do as a student union, and we'll budget all our personal costs for our financing, real estate and IT teams. There are a lot of expenses there, because we have a lot of activities. So it's the auditing of the whole group, a lot of account expenses, system expenses, transaction costs, insurances, telephone costs and legal costs and these kind of things. Supportive actions. And that was it. Then Nico about real estate budgeting. So we'll do that. What is real estate companies at the Tekkari village? What kind of operating expenses, renovation expenses, renovation reserves, funding expenses. And we have not yet completed our rental definition. I can't yet say if we will change it or not for next year. We'll probably do some fine-tuning, not any radical changes. I will look more in detail on the ARA. What direction and focused on what? The rental level will not decrease, but it will not increase that much. What will you focus on? I don't know. I shouldn't say because it's really a work in progress still. Tekkari village hasn't had increased rent in many years, so maybe we do something for that. So for everything, okay. But there's a non-committal statement. I wanna calculate it a bit more. But you can see in the next picture that we have many different real estate properties, different rent levels. We have to look at the big picture, the demand, how we can cope with all these things. So this is the structure. What will I say, Chairperson? Shall I discuss now, or first look at the corporate cooperation? Well, maybe the first and foremost thing is the structure change. So let's talk about that first. And then if you have some issues about the actual budgeting, we can talk about them after that. And if you have any things that you want to mention, if you want to say that hasn't been mentioned here, you can talk about them now. So, do you have any questions, comments on the structural change? How does it sound to you? Thumbs up. Yeah, I think we can all agree that this makes the system more transparent and makes the big picture clearer. So we can see the cash flows that were kind of invisible before. So we can probably use this as the next budget, this structure. So if you have any comments, please. If you don't have any, have a bureau with this corporate cooperation, budgeting for that for next year. Thank you, I'll be glad to listen. Yes, hello again. We'll have a presentation, but the idea is to have this kind of a preliminary discussion. I'll fill in the silence. Continue with the structure that you deemed good. The intention, as you saw, is to demonstrate, show that how much money we use in our strategic areas, not to achieve our strategic objectives, but to portray our extent of operations, to see how much money we use in different things from our overall budget. So I'm hoping that will be interesting information for you. It's kind of a budget structure, gives us better possibilities to steer the budget better. Then we get on the action plan preliminary debate.
budjetointikysymyksiin tietyllä tapaa rinnalla myös, että niin kuin budjetointi...
Talk about the actual budgeting questions in that item also, because the budget really guides our action plan. So you shouldn't propose for kind of a massive project if you don't propose the funding scheme also for it.
Pääpiirteinen fiilis varmaan on se, että voi rohkeasti myös esittää.
Idea is that you can propose different additions also to the budget, so it's not something that you have to be quiet about. Yeah, meeting the Financial Committee on Monday this week, we talked about the structure and about the budget. And also a question was asked that do we have enough resources to implement the strategy defined by the Representing Council, and that's a good question, because the strategic money that has been good now for this year, 20,000 euros, that supported our brand project, for example, is that could we have several projects that are separately resourced. I could use them to achieve our strategic resources. Because we have to use money to maintain our continuous operations every year. And it'd be difficult to take money out from there. And that's why Ilkka talked about this cost impacts through the budget, that we have to check if we have enough room for it.
Haluatko Joona tässä vaiheessa vielä vaikka avata, mihin sitä strategiaa...
Can I tell more that what we've used the strategy allowance on this year, 20,000 euros? Almost all of it has been used to go forward with the brand project. We have the brand coordinator for this project hired previously this year, and we hired this person until summer, but they will continue until the last end of the year. But most for the brand project. Yes, hello. So, can I get the previous slide? Yes. We're going to have a small preliminary discussion on your opinion on how this support an action that brings money to the student union, which is corporate cooperation, how we should invest on it, and also how much staff we want to hire for our corporate cooperation sector. And the more we hire people, the better our financial expectations to develop the operations, but it also includes the risk that if we fail in our recruitments, we will have to pay for the personal expenses unnecessarily. So the first option, that we have one part-time coordinator, same model as 2016. The expected income is about 70,000 euros. About 115,000 euros income and 45,000 euros expenses. The risk is that if one person tries to handle the corporate corporations alone, so we have the model every year that we try to renew the contracts at the same size as previously. So if you have just one person cannot do enough work to do this, and this would cause about a 35,000 loss in income. So if everything goes wrong, then the corporation sector would produce an income of 35,000 euros. So the pluses is that we will have no risk on unnecessary recruitments there's people who don't have anything to do, but the cons are that it stops the development potential of the sector because we don't have enough workforce to develop it. And the contract portfolio will degrade. And we can renew them the way we'd like to. And so for comparison, as Reija previously mentioned, in October we already had 60,000 of profits, 180,000 of income and 48,000 of expenses. And we also expect to have more contracts at the start of the end of the year. The expenses were a bit bigger because we had a part-time sales coordinator this year. The second alternative is that we will continue with the same model as we did this year, with 2 part-time employees. And we've already exceeded our requirement for income already at the start of October. So we expect to have about 85,000 euros of profit with income of 150,000 euros and expenses of 65,000 euros, because one person working here costs about this much. So the risk is the second employee will not produce as much money as we expect, which means a decrease in income, and also expenses will rise. So the risk would be that this would profit less, give us less profit than one part-time worker if everything goes wrong. But we could continue on maintaining the contracts much better and bring us possibilities to create new partnerships and not just focus on maintaining the old ones. But the cons are that if everything fails, we have to pay like unnecessary salaries. And we also identified many different areas of development in this sector, and the resources that we currently have, and what is in this alternative number 2, it's not enough to enact the development actions. And the third option is to as 3 part-time workers. That's correct. As the expected profit would be 105,000 euros. The profits would be bigger, but also the expenses, and the risk risk is that to have a bit lower profit than the previous ones, because we emphasize a lot, put a lot of focus on that these new hard employees could also bring a lot of money to us and achieve their goals that we set for them. And the pros are that we can develop the sector also over the year and in a goal-oriented manner. So we can start projects that could bring us money in 2019. That would not be reflected here directly, but we can also develop the sector in such a way that it would profit us also next year. And the cons are that when making new hirings, we're hiring new people, at least 2 of them, part-time employees. And there's also the risk that the new employees cannot achieve the goals that we have set for them. And as a summary, 1 employee, but I mean kind of that's maintaining action, and the expectation for profit would be 35,000 to 70,000 euros. And 2 employees would enable us to scale upwards as we have done now, and it's between 20,000 and 85,000 euros, and 3 employees would enable real development of the sector, and the profit would be 25 to 105,000 euros. And as a friendly reminder, corporate cooperation is a sector that brings money to the student union. So my personal opinion as the corporate cooperation person in the board, I would encourage you to invest in this because it would enhance our other operations. Any request for floor? Nuotio? Nylä? A question that talked about in the chairperson meeting. So I can put it together with the discussion there. So is this 3-employee model? Is it 2 sales coordinator and 1 corporate relations coordinator? Yes, 2 primary sales coordinators. Okay. And 2 employees would be that what we have now for some time. So 1 corporate relations coordinator, 1 sales coordinator. Yes, that's correct. In this case, if we can continue, is that in the Luova meeting, we thought that we'd be very much interested in taking this small increased risk. Well, we should also consider some kind of a limited time experiment, if it's according to all the regulations, to do that. So, but we especially wanted to hear your thoughts on the corporate cooperation sectors on this, and now that we heard them, we would very much support this 3-employee model. Thank you.
Then Nylén. I agree with Santeri in this, that I also thought regarding these AYYE products, and we have the brand. After the branding work would be that something that would be brought back, and marketing these and selling these would be also the job of the sales coordinator. Oh well, we've had a person handling this AYYE shop side. If this has been thought so, we'd need at least 2 employees, maybe not even 3, but I don't know what has been planned regarding these. Yes, Puru want to answer, or? No, we haven't thought about it straightforward. Nico has something. That much I know, that at least our corporate relations coordinator was responsible for selling the products at some point. I think Otto was responsible for that, yeah. During its history, when we've had selling products in AYYE, we've had a person hired for the job. It has always been more expensive than the profits gained from the products. So if we want to start selling products, which has not been thought at all, it would require some sort of new good ideas and implementation products. I would also like to add, like, even though in the model we are talking about these employees, and the fact that what we are not searching for how many employees we're going to hire, but rather kind of a direction and an example of what kind of risks we were taking in what direction. So, and what would the representative council want to take? What sort of risk? Talking of employees more like solidifies this idea on what the representative council decides, this expectation of profit in the budget. Paavola followed by Kaivola. It's very easy to check out these options, and they seem very, even suspiciously so. So easy, like we have these risks calculated, etc. But if you're confident in your own evaluations, it's easy to see that that more placed on this sector is would be worthy, because the risks are so marginal. So placing more money and having risk would be profitable. We have these expected funds, expected profits. This is not the upper limit, in a sense that we can scale upside as well. We can get more profits. And I agree that the least we should have is the current level. But if you are confident in your calculations, then we'll have more, should put more weight on this. Thank you. The calculations on the background of this summary, we've had to make a lot of assumptions, but the essential part is that the same that you say that the risk marginal is very small. Then Kaivala from the back row. Thank you, because AYYE has this kind of corporate relations sector which was not mentioned in any part. How would it say their role in this whole big picture? Thank you for the question and the comment regarding the corporate sector's role. We've discussed that a lot. For the past few years they've made this current deals and upholding them, and that has not kind of met the expectations of the volunteers for the year that they've been volunteering for, so we will change that role in the future to another type of direction that would hopefully be visible in the economy as a positive for the representative council, but I can't really say more. Right, we are still thinking of the actions taken by hired staff, but yes, we have thought of the sector a lot. So, additional request for by Sivonen and Soini. I would like to agree with the previous requests. Looks very good, looks very promising, thinking of our areas of expertise and studies that we have kind of these very, very profitable businesses. We could gain more profits from that, and I agree that in that sense. A question that these volunteers, what do these volunteers want in the corporate relations sector? In short, like a school where you learn sales and the skills required in sales. And as of yet, currently, that we uphold and renegotiate deals would have meant that we've had one real negotiations case during the year, which doesn't really enable kind of a loop of learning. So you just have this one challenge through trial and error where you increase and better your skills. The chairperson had also something to comment, but we're kind of straying far from the point. We're discussing about the budget review, like when we are discussing another point. And we already started discussing, because this corporate relations sector is very important and very interesting. We can maybe have that in another item, like what should we have visions of the future for the corporate relations sectors. And this is based on current activities, but we can also develop our corporate relations in other means as well. Mr. Hamsels, yes, something really quick. That fact that how have we taken into account the fact that corporate relations work, that this the gain has gone down, or how can we increase the profitability and progress? So this is in the background. In our background calculations, we've taken into account the fact that 2 sales coordinators would not create as much revenue as 1 sales coordinator working alone for a year, and just multiplying that by 2, it doesn't really go like that. But the sector has been under duress due to a lack of resource, so we will have lots of opportunities, and we've had lots of opportunities that we couldn't have been unable to grasp because we are lacking the manpower and the work power and the workforce, and we'll only have so many hours in a day. So that would actually enable using resources for additional opportunities if we get 2 coordinates. Anything else regarding this in corporate relations? Looks like we could start making this that will increase the workforce. Looks so that I think we won't have like 100 corporate relations sector coordinators in a call center. We won't get to that. Is it possible to ask general economic questions on the budget after this? So, regarding the budget as well, any questions or proposals in the upcoming weeks before the next meeting that the board and the office would prepare for you next week? One question on the budget, but one, yes, if you have anything. Okay, I have a question. We at Luova would like to inquire regarding real estate, the horizons on staff regarding real estate, because we have the Otakari project which is there in the horizon and upcoming. Should we have an estimate on when we'll start getting that rolling? So at which stage we will start hiring new staff, because we have the real estate projects and we'll have a lot more going there. So we're interested in what kind of people will we hire, and does the representative council to have a stance and to advocate and to affect the recruitment process. Like we have this progress where we can have the real estate strategy, can we? Like we have these action points, like the digitalization of venue services and community living development. And we discussed previously on this strategy fund and strategy money that what could do with the real estate strategy and implementation. Because, but the strategy money doesn't include staff costs. Luova especially would wish these kind of tryout concepts for living, these personal readinesses. So Luova would propose that we will direct more funds to real estate. Like we would want to know when are we making recruitments. Joona will answer. To this ideas, we will finalize the budget, after which the board will take a stance on this issue, especially with the Reija and Nico will their support. We don't have a single answer ready for you. We have the need, which is evident, has been for the entire year, and we are proposing so that strategy money is money, and money is used to hire people and used for other resources. It will be shown as resources, as money in the budget. Also had the timetable question. What would the timetable be? When will we be hiring people? When will you evaluate that Otakari will start? Well, Otakari will start. It's a very specific question, and we don't have an exact timetable, but during the spring we will have move with the planning. But we have lots of other big projects, the real estate strategy. We also have service development, not just real estate development, like we have these themes. We have several different themes that we need more resources for, and we are fully aware of that. So the timetable is that we will not do the recruitment next week, but we will take a stance on that as soon as possible. Simonen? We've this year several times heard that the office has a lack of resources to, well, carry out resolutions done by the representative council. Would it be possible to recruit more people to the office to, well, carry out these kinds of ideologies? Have you thought that we could hire more people to administrative functions, because we have a lot of work regarding to the resources available? I would see this, well, of course we would hire more people if it would be possible, but regrettably it's not so. We don't have the economical, well, requirements. We have the current budgets and we work within them. In that sense, I can't see that we have any possibilities to make any increasements in staff. I would rather see that we'll have to focus our activities and think on what are the most important things that we need to do. And in addition to that, our culture of how we do procedures, we should change it towards how we don't fill our calendars at the office. Like our activities, like we can't react to things happening in the environment and around us. Rather, that would be something we need to do. To the group chairperson meeting, I presented this ideology of in the office program that through which we could reflect at the office the work tasks that we have entirety and maybe use that as a tool in the future to prioritize things. Why we haven't really done that and why we haven't sent to the Representative Council is that we lack the translation still, but this has been undertaken in the group chairperson's meeting. Like if we could get this offset, like we have from corporate relation, if we can get 800k, of course we'll just hire new people at that stage. I want to continue that. I think it's very important that we take a stance on these strategic and strategies and the strategic goals, and that this is the stuff that can be thought of in advance, and that we have the resources, and then take a stance on will we take the resource somewhere else, like give a lot of this type of services, because we only have so many hours in the day for everyone. And of course maybe we haven't really polarized these discussions enough, but what comes to these changes, of course there are current topics, we have strategic topics, we have other topics than those as well, advocacy work and stances all like this, but we also have other kinds of development projects. We have these ideas that come up during the terms, and then reacting to these ideas would require that we drop something else and not do that. So it's good that we have these strategic monetary funds put aside so we can restart new current ideas when they come up. But mostly we focus on implementing the program already in place. So does this answer the questions? Or yes, I'd say that, well, what would help at the office and the workload, whatever would help with that. Nick also told about the framework and the budget, but he talked about it from many other points, but that is something that's been decided, like where the line goes, where we draw the line. I do not encourage the Representative Council to make a decision on the opposite direction regarding this. So that was the office's view on the subject. Any other requests for floor regarding the budget? I would also like to ask that the previous slides, venue and facility questions are very interesting. We haven't really gone through with this. Representative Council, what would I like to ask at this stage? We have this principle that we don't make monetize these facilities. We'll try to use the rental ideas that we cover the costs incurred, but rental facilities are a possibility to increase our monetary funds, not by a large part, but maybe will we continue? I would like to ask that, like, what would be the direction we continue from here on out? From starting from left to right, Peltola, and then Soinio and Seppälä. Anybody in the back row? Well, facilities, these single rentals, we really require a lot of statistics, how they've gone, what have been the prices, if we've hiked them up or lowered them. The Representative Council lacks the required information to actually make any decisions on increasing or decreasing the prices. So, do you mean all rental spaces, all club venues, guild houses, etc.? So this is kind of a principal question to you. Still, we don't want to take the stance that we would monetize our rental facilities. But well, to decide that, we need to first know that is that even a realistic possibility. So we need the stats. So yes, okay. 2015, I think we did some rework on that, and Santeri might remember it better. But we wonder on like the facilities where the price was too high in regards to how much is being used. I think currently the prices are reasonable, and since the student union is an enabler of activities for the associations, I think it's important that our members use the facilities, so I wouldn't really hike the prices up just to get money. So let's get this. So In principle, I agree with Rosa here, but rather check out, like, I would like to see the stats, but rather keep the prices as low as possible for our own members. But maybe check the prices for outside renters. Like, I've heard that this is just like my opinion, like heard that Otaniemi's spaces are very, very cheap to outsiders as well in Espoo. Like, we have problems that arise from their party, so that can be covered by hiking up the prices for outsiders. On the same points, like let's not start ripping out more funds from our members. More of our venues are going to renovations, or have undertaken renovations, and this should be taken into account in the level of the rentals. So if it's just been renovated, the price should be higher than it was before renovations. We have different styles, like we had the AYYE sauna, which was kind of a very, very posh venue. I don't know how much money it has brought, but we have these kinds of venues. Like, if we are thinking of like these venues as sources of income, like especially like if we have a corporate sponsorships venue, you get it for free. Like, well, the guilds pay a lot, but can we receive money from that from other sources? Maybe we'd have one or two venues where we could get a lot of funds, but still sensible sums. But we cannot go the way of hiking up the prices on rental venues and to not improve them in terms of renovation. That's kind of hiking up the price for our members, which is not sensible. It's a clear point. That was pretty much covered what was said. So it seems like let's not start monetizing our rental facilities. Okay. Nothing else. It seems like comments on the budget review. So let's hope that we have a lot of work for the office and the board. And after that, before next meeting, we'll have hopefully a kind of referral, like preliminary version on what will it look like. Okay. So, I will close discussions, and to move on to design, the proposal was that the Representative Council decide to place on record the preliminary discussion on the budget for 2018 decided. Closing item 17, moving on to item 18, preliminary discussion on the action plan. Thank you to Reija at this stage for the presentation. Does this work? So, at this stage, regarding the budget preliminary discussion, we hope that I will have a short presentation of our idea at the office and the board on what kind of action plan we will draft. And we would like to hear from you ideas and thoughts, like we are doing this work next week. So what kind of points of weight will you want to place? Well, Nico has these slides, so I would like Nico, of course, to do the presentation. The same as that we had on the inside document there. It's an awesome presentation we have here. Do we have to use these? This is really, really not my thing. So, everybody knows our strategy. We have these focus points. We have the direction of the student union, AYYE as a wielder of influence in society, and AYYE as a builder of the Aalto identity. Now we have this real estate strategy, which we also discussed in the budget. And we really quickly went through, like what Joona said. At this stage, what we would wish is that if we have really specific focus points where the Representative Council would wish that the board would focus on when drafting this plan, and any other thoughts on how should we implement this and how should we bring this preliminary action plan to you up for discussion and decision. So the idea is that to have a free-form conversation at this stage. Is this a request for floor? We asked on will we do in 2018? My feeling is that AYYE, as a builder of Aalto identity, when discussing about resolution and things that have brought discussion, they have had to do a lot with what does Aalto spirit mean and what does it have to do with everything. So regarding that, as one idea like we discussed last year, the week before that, no, that's not the year. Week, we talked to Mikkeli from 2016, we proposed for this year. So we couldn't really discuss how could we develop the situation at the Mikkeli students' parts on their campus. So maybe AYYE board and Rob could do.
Joo, hyvä juttu. Sitten oli Sivosen
So,
Seppälällä puheenvuoro.
good. Sivonen and Seppälä had something and Koponen in the back. Well, now in 2018, we could have the most important point. We have the AYY's influence in society, because we have the 2019 April, we'll have the parliamentary elections. And it would be nice to have like this top-notch campaign for like student subsistence, student housing wouldn't be cut back as is done by the current government. It's a good point. Even though, like to Nylen's comment, I'd regard that we have this AYYE builder of the Aalto identity would be a focus point, and this through the new brand, it's clear we need a clear renovation to our activities, regulations, etc., etc. We have lots of stuff that's coming straight from TKK, lots of part that have been based on the fact that we are in transition, that will be removed in the future. Since we are going to be 9 years old soon, these ideas should be removed at one stage or another. So to focus on Tekkari identity, we should like detach Tekkari culture from AYYE and to kind of start breaking this idea like AYYE equals TKK. Ideology should be broken slowly but steadily. And as a builder of Aalto identity and influence in society. Rootio followed by Koponen. And then Rosa. Would you like to answer this? No, I'll just wait. So I would second Rosa and Peppi, especially part on builder of the Aalto identity, and I also like to raise the arts renovations and they're moving, that the arts moved, and this whole new situation that we have in the Otaniemi campus when we have like in practicality all kinds of students and all kinds of fields of study and expertise in our university are present in Otaniemi. That should be taken into account somehow. Like when we're talking about the board composition, the arts moving and that group that were previously in Arabia, and to reach them better in the future. I see it's a bit funny. It's like we have this dichotomy. We have these strategies that we have. I cannot see like how can you focus between the two, because both of these items have a lot of stuff in them that we've already discussed on what do we want to do. So it's kind of odd to cut these two off and like we're not picking things into focus, we're picking them out of focus. So as a focus, as a reiteration, that was not my point to cut off anything or hearing from you like will we do this next year or will we focus on this or will we focus on that. The point is to focus on everything, but within these items we have certain goals that we set in building the Aalto spirit or whatever for the next 2 years, and in those goals you can also focus on like is one of the goals especially important next year. And on the format, in short, what is our idea? Currently, what kind of presentation are we bringing to the format is like a bit same as last year that we did. We have these focal points that will come up, and we've also thought of more broader projects than these that would be resourced separately, like with the strategy money, and we have also these implementations of development actions that sectors undertake. And from these, we could propose some sort of prioritization, like what, first of all, should be done next year, especially, and what are issues that should be started right in January. So that was a clarification from Don Nylén next, and followed by Seppälä. Regarding Peppi's comment, or where as a builder of Aalto identity, we talked about the association regulation when these, like we have this association system that should be rethought, because if we have associations that will be left out of the registry, so that could be part of this identity. And when talking about societal influence, we have the parliamentary elections that are coming. That's a good point. We should thought on what to do, if we should do with SUL in cooperation, kind of this national student campaign, like what we could have AYYE things straight implemented into that and not make our specific points. Like my point was to say that SUL as EU elections are a focal point next year. Well, not the EU elections, but there's a big thing there as well. Of the both points. So, all right, then Sade and Seppälä had something. Oh, sorry, Sade and then Korpelainen regarding the action plan. As an advocacy board committee member, to continue with the policy papers, they should really be gone through. They're all outdated. We don't really know what's the office doing with this, because they're all outdated, and I say that we can't really use them. We should renovate them from the ground up. So, Sade followed by Korpelainen. Sade from Luova. Palmo Luovasta. Palmo from Luova, yes. Sorry, yeah, that went as planned. So it's pretty clear that the real estate strategy is important to be implemented continuously, and in the upcoming years it'll be more important and more so. Korpelainen? I would continue from Seppälä's request as seconded from the Kulta reports. We had the arts moving next year, and in 2019 we have the business school. All activities would move to Otaniemi, so two big changes through which the whole of Aalto will be at the Otaniemi campus. So to second Seppälä's point, this AYYE ready projects for culture and business. So I see these, like Peppi mentioned, that these kind of TKY structures. So it's, of course, it's temporary or a bit weird kind of transitional discussions and transitional choices. So when we are talking about interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary actions, well, of course, there are probably other things as well, but these are stuff that kind of sticks. So AYYE ready. So it's nice to be in the board next year. Okay. So no stress on that part. Really good points. I think that's, what do you feel? The board is here, Nico is here. Are these things that, based on which you can start continuing this work next year? Is there something else you require? Nico, maybe. I won't say anything. Maybe for you it'll be easier to see from the proposal, like I used to implement the structure. We had good comments on here and there in that direction. I don't know if you have any actual ideas, maybe from Luova. The real estate strategy is a point. If you have really specific points about the real estate strategy, what would Luova wish, especially like in the start of the year, January, February, etc. So focus points on that would be appreciated. Nico will continue. Maybe I'll make this kind of brave question, because Reija is no longer here, that we have lots of measures that should be taken when we discussed. They will require a lot of resources. When we're thinking of these moving situations, election themes, if we want to make campaigns, etc., etc., they all require a lot of resources, and I can already say that we have 20K for that, it will not be enough for all of this. And we don't have the final numbers yet. So where would the final numbers be? But one idea that crossed my mind is that this kind of should this try to be like recognize these upcoming 2 years like as very, very exceptional and maybe put more funds on them. Should that be something we should do? Reija will hang me for this. What Nico said is like based on this, it shows that the board will also prepare sort of a budget that will be very, very bold. And more resources that these issues will require will be presented, and I hope that all of these, I can say that the allure of student unions is a strategic question that should be focused on. So, what Johanna threw the ball back at us, I'd say like an implementation on, like a clarification on what Sede said, that here and now when we are in this manner discussing our preliminary discussions and the action plan and asking on what kind of, from the strategy, should we focus on or should we focus on, I'd say what Sede would want to do is put forth our big picture view on like we could have these certain development targets for next year, but this real estate strategy will be in our activities our biggest thing for the next 100 years or so. Well, of course, with not this real estate strategy, but the real estate strategy in general. The real estate strategy should always be in the very center of things. We also put forth in Luova's own meeting these certain points that could be, well, from the start of the year to like have a tryout, or maybe put a part of the action plan. Maybe this is kind of a experimental living project kickoff, maybe. This kind of more experimental student living, or musing on that sense, or going to that direction. We could start kicking that off, because it has been really, so far it's only kind of these nice buzzwords. So how can we show our innovation in our real estate side? And in another part we have the digitalization of living services. It has been developed a bit, but we would like to hear some new news on that. But these are issues that were raised. In addition, to answer to Nico's question, which was that, can you repeat it, because I didn't have time to repeat the question. I wrote Nico's question here. I was pondering on, yes, like 2 special years. Of course, this is something that we should maybe start putting some focus on a short leash on that. We have 2 big years coming up for our community, but that should not mean that we would just totally let the budget go loose and just go over the top with it. So when you gave us critique, like we have these, in your wishing well, we're just throwing more and more things that cost money, and that's kind of a hard job to, well, without to make some cutbacks. It's hard to just come up with the money. So to this preliminary discussion, we could have brought possible cutback ideas. Like, these are really hard, just from the top of my mind as a representative council member, start throwing out ideas on what to cut back from. Next, I can't even remember. Seppälä, Sivonen and Paavonen. Kaivola. Thank you, Chairperson, and a good idea that the strategy money would be increased, but at the same time, if we are increasing the money, I hope that we would have a closer plan to represent council, not through the higher depiction, but like, what are we using the money for? We want a clear picture on that. Seppälä? Like, I can give my own views on this, that I would see that, yes, of course, elections, etc. But if we are starting to budget more money to extra, we should go to this policy paper, AYYE, make AYYE ready project, not just like stuff that's with lesser impact on the 10-year period. Of course, if we are talking like we are coming to the close of a 10-year period soon, so we could budget for the next 10-year period and have a goodest budget as possible for that. So if because these are issues that if we do these badly, that'll come as bite us in the ass a lot more quickly. Like maybe like 6 to 10 years program would be something I should be focused on. We are shortly running out of time.
Isn't a very favorable historical memory is short. We always can have exceptional years. Then we have the finishing year for this student center. So the exceptional years every year. And we can come up with big projects, and AYYE will not be finished next year. So I don't support this myself. But the real estate strategy, the big investments there, that's a different issue. Yes, back here we pondered about what is the number of board members AYYE based on, because they're very cost-efficient workforce.
30 hengen hallitus.
Yes, a 30-member board.
Okei, haluatko aina vastata hallituksen puheen?
No, do you want to answer, reply? Yes, there are persons in positions of trust, so they cannot be obliged to similar things as other people. So I don't suggest board members to be used as workforce the same way as employees or. No, being leader of one board, so it's very stressful. The more we put work on them and implementation, they also have to be able to do this kind of board work and guidance work and defining of policies. And the more we implement projects, the less time we have for advocacy work and tasks related to positions of trust. I think it's a very good discussion, a very comprehensive list of different subjects. And with this, the board can draft a good action plan next week. So read it thoroughly, comment on it, suggest changes. And prioritization is very important. The more substance we have there, the more certain we can be that something will be left undone next year. So, moving on to making the decision, the proposal was that the representing council decide to place a record the preliminary discussion on the action plan 2018. This has been decided. Closing item 18, moving to item 19. We are short on time because our representing council member has to leave, but it doesn't remove our quorum. But just try to wrap this up quickly. 19, preliminary discussion on the instructions for the SYL General Assembly delegation. Well, here in the material, we've just scratched the surface on the issues that the General Assembly will handle this year. And as background for the discussion here in the materials, we talked about, told you what kind of materials we have sent, they have sent to the student unions, and these are the main points of influencing. We'll make some changes to the policy paper, but not very big changes because it was renewed last year. And we have this plan of work. We have a general policy, European Parliament elections, transformational work, project related to that, and also SYL, and also develop cooperation, and of course the budget. Those are the most relevant things. When if we go forward a bit, we can see the representatives, and you can see the actual members. There are some typos there, sorry for that.
Tuossa näkyy myös työryhmät, missä
You can see the working groups.
Siellä on hallinto- ja
There's the administration of finances, social policy and parliament elections, education policy and working life, and international affairs, EU advocacy and development cooperation.
erityisesti ehkä sosuprojekteja ja
These are the corresponding to the action plan projects and changes in the policy paper. They have been divided according to that. And in addition to that, AYYE has nominated its own candidate for president for AYYE, Petteri, sitting here in the front row. And we'll spar with him. Good luck.
tämä on meille erityisen tärkeä tavoite.
It is a very important goal for us in the General Assembly to have Petteri as the president
Seuraavalla slaidilla
for a while.
näkyy
On the next slide, you can see the situation up to that week ago. I think it's still current. What other candidates we have from other student unions? So there are 2 other candidates for presidency and 7 candidates for members of the board. And then there's also the student union in parentheses. And then after the actual discussion, so the delegation must have a comprehensive assembly from all groups, so hopefully all groups have some kind of link to the delegation, and the delegation promotes the policies of the student union, and we also give other instructions to them. And that's why it says in the regulations that the representing council organizes a preliminary debate for the union meeting delegation, where it may provide more specific instructions and goals for the delegation, which the delegation is obliged to follow. I've been chosen as the chairperson of the delegation, so I'm now representing other persons of the delegation also. I'll communicate any issues brought up to them. So opening discussion.
Onko nyt asioita, joita haluaisitte
Any issues
antaa delegaatiolle
that you want to,
tavoitteita?
there's some instructions you want to give the delegation, objectives?
Ei näytä.
Yes, Palmu. Palmu from Luova. Kind of background on what kind of themes we will discuss at the General Assembly, because usually there's something that you can read between the lines, that there's some kind of a discussion, for example, last year about the student healthcare. So in addition to the official issues, are there some kind of themes that can be read between the lines? Well, parliament elections related to that. Several student unions wants to have a preliminary discussion about what would be as well as policies for the upcoming parliamentary elections, and that's a subject that will most likely be discussed besides these issues. We still don't have all the material, so we don't know yet, but yes. No specific instructions apparently, but its task is to represent the student union in the General Assembly. And by contacting members of the delegation, you can get further information or give your thoughts to them. And there was the statement found in the inside the Excel, where we have our comments on things that were asked. And closing discussion, the decision, the proposal was the representing council decided to place a record, the discussion on the instructions for the SYL General Assembly delegation. Someone still has something, okay. Has it been delivered to the representing council or just to the delegation? We can't really give you any instructions if we haven't received any materials, if we are not part of the delegation. You can find the link to that in the presentation. Find the link to the comment round material. Yes, just wanted to make sure. Not have a vague recollection that Petteri sent them. We close the discussion, but let us just say that the materials have been communicated to the representing council before the meeting, yes. So the proposal was that the representing council decided to place a record the discussion on the instructions for the SYL General Assembly delegation. It's been decided that thus Closing item 19, moving to item 20, other emerging matters. I have two other matters. One is that, just to let you know, that before the previous meeting, Filman went to propose a motion for about Frank's activities, but Filman has said that conveyed the matter directly to the board to prepare it a bit before the actual motion. Second matter, a very sad thing. I would like to about Mikkeli, about this homicide related to people studying there at the University of Applied Sciences. I think we can say on behalf of all of us that we send all of our love and support to them. Touched up by this incident, they have received crisis support from Aalto quickly. But what's on support to there? Any other emerging matters? No. Closing item 20. Going to item 21, closing of the meeting. Closing the meeting at 7:58 p.m.